We got another two-banger this time around. We are joined by Rick Clunn when he makes his monthly visit by the podcast, but that's not all. Also joined by Tyler Williams, Elite Series rookie, already made one top 10, won an Open last year. He's the only angler ever to qualify for the Bassmaster Elite Series from Maine, making him the main event. Tyler Williams and Rick Clunn join me this week on...
I'm Bob Cobb from the Bassmaster. Welcome to Mercer.
Welcome one, welcome all, friends, family, freeloaders, fishing freaks, humpers. You're all welcome here at the Awkwardly Honest Fishing Podcast that goes by my last name, which is Mercer. Welcome into the 156th edition of the Mercer Podcast, and a very special welcome to all my humpers that tune in each and every hump day at 6 p.m. Eastern Time to check out this particular brand of tomfoolery that happens. And I thank you all for that. It was a big week this week for many things. I mean, the Final Four ended, which is exciting for a lot of people. WrestleMania was this past weekend, which is exciting for weirdos like me. Sunday evening was one of the best WrestleMania Sundays ever. I mean, it was literally the only thing missing was Gold Dust. I mean, I thought he would come back. And just by saying that, there's a bunch of people saying, why do I listen to this podcast? Well, probably you listen to this podcast because of our first guest here this week, the one and only Rick Clunn. But before I introduce him, let's talk about another strange thing that happened this week. The eclipse, as if you haven't heard enough about it. The only person that was really a beneficiary of it was Bonnie Tyler. I mean, everybody listening to her song again, Total Eclipse of the Heart. But the Total Eclipse of the Heart did happen this week, and people were feverish about it. And I get it. It's a big deal. It's never going to happen in my lifetime. Again, it's not going to happen in most people's lifetime. Again, it is a big deal. But when you read up on it and you had people tell you, but you don't understand, it's going to get darker and colder. It does that every night. But it was marvelous. I mean, I watched it with my kids. We counted on those cheap cardboard glasses protecting our eyes, and I'm sure you did too. But it was wonderful. Here's what was cool about it. It was a time when we were out on our porch. I looked down the street we live on. You see a bunch of other people out on their porch. It was a bunch of families together actually focusing on something that wasn't connected to a device. I know that's weird for me to say this to you because you're probably listening to this on a device, but there are times where let's just move on, I guess, and move on in good fashion, because speaking of great things that don't come around often, our first guest is definitely that, and he returns to the podcast for his monthly residency. It is Clunn Day, Clunn Day, Clunn Day. Rick, lots has gone on since we last chatted. It seems like wow, it seems like more than a month has passed. But one of the big things that happened since we last chatted, obviously Bassmaster Classic, but you fished with Randy Moss. What was that like?
You really never know what to expect, and so I try not to anticipate ahead of time. But it was kind of, I fished with other top athletes before, Randy White and Dallas Cowboys and J.R. Richards of the Houston Astros and others. And what I enjoy about it is to, of course, try to get us out of that, knowing that cameras are on us, because we both had more cameras on us than we probably want. So I want to get them to kind of put them in an environment that they really are comfortable with. But at the same time, what I immediately noticed is, how competitive he is, but he backed it up with the positive attitude the whole day. And so that's no surprise. He didn't become the great athlete he was without those elements. And that's the part that I really get caught up in myself. I get caught up in how there's the physical elements of what he does and I do are totally different, and that's true with all sports. We're all different, but the mental elements really are amazingly pretty much the same. And it's everybody can spout positive mental things, but are they really living it? And then that's not easy to do. I mean, there's plenty of reasons, to get off that positive track you're on. But he really never did. He had a goal in mind. He didn't want anything but to win the tournament. And so he switched the pressure back on me. But the format of the tournament was kind of fun because immediately we could switch the pressure back on him, because we couldn't even fish until he caught the first keeper. So that was kind of interesting. He, and so as time, 15 minutes goes by, 30 minutes goes by, and 45 minutes goes by, and I haven't picked up a rod yet. It's starting to put pressure on them. Come on, I got to catch a keeper. I got to catch a keeper. We got to get both of us in this game. So, and that was the fun part. And it's such a small time frame to get to know somebody. You're not going to get to know somebody. He might know a little bit of the Rick Clunn, the angler, and I know a little bit of Randy Moss, the wide receiver, but we don't know anything else about us. It's kind of like going, this is going to be a strange analogy, but it's kind of like going, people say, I'm going to go see the Grand Canyon. And they drive up there, they run over to the edge, they take 20 pictures, and they get back in the car and they head for Los Angeles. And then they say, I saw the Grand Canyon. No, you didn't see. And it's kind of the same thing when we get around people with that kind of magnitude. You wish you had more time, but he doesn't have more time. Everybody wants a piece of him, and we experience that in our sport, but not to the degree that athletes of that magnitude do, or other people of that magnitude. I don't know how they ever have a moment of privacy.
Yeah, and especially somebody like him, because physically he stands out. He's very tall. Like you don't have to say, well, which one's Randy Moss? I mean, you see it from across the room.
Yep. No, it is. And he so values, you could tell he so values those moments when he can just be Randy Moss, the fisherman. He doesn't have to be Randy Moss anything else. And those are important. You deal with, me and you deal with the same thing, not at the magnitude he does. But you just want to be this other person that I don't even know, and at times, and like me, I want to work it. I want to be a dad. I want to be a husband. I want to be a friend. But nobody sees that side of you. They only see the side that the camera shows them.
Yeah. So let's take this in a pretty unique. I mean, you've opened it up in a good direction when you're talking about Randy Moss and his attitude. What is the most, do you remember the movie Weird Science?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Well, basically Wyatt and I forget his buddy's name, but they designed a girl. They created her. And the girl at the time was Kelly LeBlanc, who was a big deal at that time. Was it Wyatt and Chet? No, Chet was his brother. It was Wyatt, and doesn't matter. But they designed and they took all these elements that they thought would make this perfect girl. Let's make the perfect professional angler. If you had to choose, I'm not going to put a number on, but what qualities make the perfect professional angler? Not you, but if you were designing, what qualities would you want to design and to create the perfect professional angler?
In a roundabout way, that's what the sport's been trying to do. If you go back in time, when Ray Scott started everything, that became apparent to him that he had to do that if he wanted the sport to grow. So he was kind of the Frankenstein of our sport, and he started to bring in, and of course the first person that he brought in wasn't an angler, but it was critical, was Bob Cobb, because Ray couldn't deal with the media, not at a good level. And so he brought in, but then getting to the fisherman part of it, he recognized real quick that he had to change the image of the angler. Because back then the angler, wrong or right, it was different than it is now. And I'm not saying it's gotten completely better, but Ray realized I had to bring in somebody, and he brought in Bill Dance. Bill Dance dressed well, he spoke well, he had all of his teeth when he smiled, and all of a sudden the angler started to take on a different image. This was the image that Ray wanted, and it's the one that hit me the hardest at first. Look, this guy, because fishermen really were not, it took a long time for fishermen to be bona fide as anglers. Was that a legitimate thing? Is that a legitimate thing? Or do you really have a real job? But Bill Dance started that. And so he was the first piece in that person you're talking about we'd want to create. That he spoke well, he was a good angler, great angler, and he just really served us. And then the other thing Ray had to face was that fishing back then was thought to be luck. In fact, the federal government and IRS had it in the gambling category, when they had to figure out how to tax a sport versus, it was simply based on how much skill did it take to win. And in fishing, they didn't see any skill, so they put it in gambling and luck. And so Ray had to get past that, and that's when all of a sudden Roland Martin shows up. And Roland Martin is a science. He's an art and science guy. He all of a sudden you started to see there is a science to this. There is an art to this. It's not luck. And if you depend on luck, you're in trouble. And so anybody that wanted to become this next evolution of angler better get that luck part out of their head. And so that was kind of the beginning of the question, what would you have? Definitely, I want it to be looked at as a true sport, that it does take skill. I want the people to represent it to be, similar to Bill Dance, that has really values for the outdoors and for conservation. And because indirectly, my son, I think I've told you before, asked me one time, is there any real purpose in what you do? And of course, I don't know how, but I do know, we all ask ourselves that question, but I do know that just observing the big scheme of the planet and the world, that the further we get away from the outdoors, seems like the more sanity and more insanity we see in the world. And so then you say, well, how can we get people back into the outdoors and allow them to experience it? And that's been one of the greatest things to happen in my career, is that we have now getting young people back into the outdoors. And fishing is probably the best vehicle for the masses to stay connected to the natural world. And that's where sanity is. There's nobody that, even some of the greatest entrepreneurs there were, will tell you that their greatest thoughts come when they climbed a mountain, or when they sail an ocean or something. That's when they got these greatest insights. But so, yeah, to me, it is important that be part of that angler, that he understands that the sport really is more than catching fish. It's actually keeping people in tune with the outdoors. It's just look at the bass, this little green fish that Ray Scott got us chasing. And just the fact that a bunch of us started chasing it gave that fish more value. And it's in humans, the things that we don't value, unfortunately, we usually destroy. The things we value, we'll start to protect. And Ray gave that fish more and more value in the industry, in communities. Now there's communities, their whole economics based on how many tournaments they can get in. How many tournaments do they get at Rayburn and Cypress Bend and Toledo and Lake Fork now? And there's negatives to tournaments, yeah, but there's a lot more positives. And it's because it's getting people, again, that vehicle to stay connected. And it gives it more value. Most of our, I'm not, Ray and the Bass Nation spent a lot of time at Congress getting water cleaned up in the early days to protect that fish, and so, it's, so that I want that fisherman to still be aware of that more than as much as anything. I want him. Right now, we have a division, I think, in a lot of what anglers think is the right way and wrong way to do it. But I think the worst mistake we can make, and that angler that I would create would never sentence us to mediocrity. He would never do that. And there's a lot of that philosophy out there now. We're going to sentence fishing to mediocrity. And so that's the political side of it. And my value, Ray brought along, so I'm going to give myself a little value here, I guess, like I did Bill and Roland, was the politics that Ray was getting in at that time. I had two eventual presidents standing on both sides of me when I won the Classic in 1984. And something good came out of my mouth. And these presidents, especially one of them, became very influenced by fishermen and was a fisherman himself. And like I said at the Classic, he basically told me one time that today, when we fished together, he told me, "You're not a world championship angler, and I'm not president of the United States. We're just two guys who love to fish." And all too often, we see the differences between us and others, but we should also realize we've got a lot of things that we share. And we should focus on those as much as we do our differences. So it's and where's it going to go in the future? Who knows? It's gone way beyond what I thought it was going to do to begin with.
What do you mean by anglers being sentenced to mediocrity? Explain that.
Well, when you start limiting and when you start, in other words, I'm going to try to keep myself out of trouble here, but throughout the history of man, okay, all the leaders, the bureaucracy, the kings, the heads of churches knew the most powerful thing that the masses could get was knowledge. But did we really want them to have knowledge? And no, they did not at that time. So they started, They started not deleting, but prohibiting them from accessing certain knowledge. And they also started, saying, okay, you can only understand this to this level, and that's it. And so you see a little bit of that going on. I don't want to get back into it, but you see that going on right now. Is I've learned more, and I stated this the last time, I've learned more in the last 4 or 5, 6 months about bass behavior than I learned the whole 49 years of my life before. That's correct. I was still working under theories that weren't correct. And so, and historically, the hierarchy had the knowledge, but they didn't want anybody else to get it because knowledge is power. And so right now, if you say we can't do this and we can't use that and we can't do this, then you're basically, okay, I'm going to say it and then let's shut up about this. Okay, if you say you can't use scoping anymore, You're basically saying, I accept just being a mediocre fisherman, and only the mediocre fishermen can fish tournaments now. The stokers can't. And so you're sentencing us to mediocrity, because let's just say hypothetically that we said, okay, no more electronics in tournament fishing. Okay, I go back now to catching my 15 to 18 pounds, which is going to be pretty good again. But I know, and I might even win tournaments with 15, 18 pounds a day. But I know in the back of my mind, there's high school kids out there that are not limited by what I'm doing, busting 25 pounds a day. Okay, how are they ever going to look at us and think that we're the best when they're busting our bust by 7, 8 pounds a day on what we're catching? So essentially, we've limited ourselves. We've sentenced ourselves the rest of our careers to mediocrity. And because the truth is known, we're not the best in the water anymore. So, and that's really, I've really had a neat feeling, maybe naive to some extent, the last month or 2 or 3 before the Classic. Golly, you know what I want to do? I went to watch George Burns in Vegas, and I've told you this story before. He was 90 years old, and he did an incredible performance. And I made myself a promise after watching that old man up on the stage that when I get 90, I'm going to have one more great performance. What is it going to be? I don't know. But now I know what it's going to be. I'm going to win a tournament scoping. That's what I want to do. I want to show that I can win a tournament scoping. And it does fit right into my age bracket. It fits into my mindset. It fits into where my body is at this point in time. So that's what I want to do. So again, everybody has different thought, and let's shut up and go a different direction now, please.
Okay. No, I find it amazing how you look at it so different than so many. I mean, you would think you would look at it differently, but I appreciate your honesty. But what's coming up for you? Event 499 and event 500 for you in Florida. Does it feel different going to those? Or are those just numbers that we're going to make a big deal about?
6 months ago, I said they're just numbers we're making a big deal about. But, and like I've stated, but now after going through the last 3 to 6 months, and everybody it's allowed me to watch video of my game. All this reflection, all these, the cast shows, now the Classic, and all the articles I've read about myself, and all the people who come up and are so kind to you. Again, I'm now I've been able to do like a football player or a basketball player. After the game, I can go back and watch the video of the game. Now I can see the whole game. I couldn't see it when I'm inside it, and I was inside it for almost 50 years, and so I couldn't see the whole game. And so I was missing some incredible people and things that they were doing right beside me. And I was missing some just really neat things that would happen. But now that I'm getting to watch the video of the game, really it's not just the numbers. It's I can see the meaning behind it. I can see all the people who contribute to me, allowing me to do it and to get there. And so it's given me a deeper appreciation. Historically, St. Johns River is feast or famine for me. So I'm going, golly, don't let it be famine, but it's a heck of a deal on your 500 tournament. But St. John's does that to me. It always has. I either don't catch crap or I win it. Of course, I only won 2, so there's a lot more of them I didn't catch crap. So, but still, that's kind of, that the old competitor kind of sneaks back in, and your ego sneaks back in, and you'd like to see the 500 tournament. Be I'm realistic, but still be a good thing, and not sitting there, wiping the blood off after you've been run over by a herd of buffalo.
It is straight out of a Disney novel. Like, how ironic is it that your 500th is the St. John's River, where you've won your last two Bassmaster events, where you coined the phrase, don't ever accept that your best moments are behind you. And I wish Bass was smarter and said, hey, this is how we're going to make it play out. And I know they didn't take that into thought, but does it amaze you that
Yeah,
one is number 500?
yeah, it does. It does. It just, like you say, I mean, it does. And absolutely. I just go, wow, how did that turn out that way? And then, like you said, the fact that my last two wins were there. And in fact, I've had more wins in the state of Florida than any state. And that kind of surprises me because I would never, you'd ask me if Florida was one of my favorite places to fish. I would have told you no. And yet I've won 4 events there in Florida. And I don't think I've won more than 3 in any other state. I mean, talking about big events. So no, it's fun. I'm just going to enjoy the fun of that. I tend to overthink things. I'm going to try not to overthink it and just enjoy the fun of it.
Why is Florida so? Florida, you said St. John's River's feast or famine for you, but Florida is feast or famine for a tournament angler. Like it just, why is Florida this nut that so many people have a hard time cracking?
Oh, you can come up with some excuses, and I'm not sure how valid they are, but we are fishing for a different fish in Florida. You know, a bass is a bass is a bass is what I kind of learned when I started traveling. Because actually, when I started fishing my first tournaments and I was leaving Texas, I thought that when I crossed the state line, now I was going to be fishing for a different fish. Over time, you quickly realize they're no different. They don't know where the state lines are. They don't even know what country they're in. You can go to Japan, or you can go to South Africa, or you can go to other places that have bass, and the bass is still just a bass, except Florida. Florida, it's genetically a different creature too, and when you realize that probably 90% of the anglers come from other parts of the country, they didn't grow up fishing for that fish. They grew up fishing for a different species that I consider more aggressive. Florida, he's lives in shallow water his whole life. Biologically, I think the weather patterns affect him harder and quicker than they do those in other parts of the country where you have deeper impoundments. But at the same time, because I'm a power fisherman, always have been, and they just didn't want to chase my baits as much as I wanted them to chase my baits. The Florida bass don't chase as much, especially the bigger they get. And both of those tournaments I won in 2016 and 2020, 2019, I had to slow down slower than I've ever fished in my life, because I started to realize that to catch those quality fish that in our events now I have to do what they want, and that is slow down. Both of those areas I won in, those were 2 tournaments in. I would have normally fished, let's just say this 100-yard area they were in. In the past, I would be through that 100-yard area in 15 minutes. Okay, I had to take an hour to get through that area to catch those bigger fish. So I had to adjust to the fish, and that's in Florida. That's just what I've always noticed about Florida fish is, and plus we've always gone down there. This hopefully is a little different this year. We've always gone down there when they really were starting to focus on baiting. And we all know if you're not a bed fisherman, those fish are impossible to catch if you're not bed fishing. In 2019, they had just moved up to start that, so they were still feeding, and they were still big, and they still had their stomachs on them. And that's why I almost busted 35 pounds that last day to win that tournament. 2016 was just the opposite. They were almost finished, and they were starting to go back on to a feed. So maybe the April here this year we'll get more of a fish that's agreeable to chase.
will you go into those tournaments like, or are you willing to even tell me, will you, is there a different mindset with it being that different time of year, or is it very much an open book and we'll see what plays out?
I've tried to have a different mindset for the last 3 years, and it's not working. So in here, I think I'm just not. I'm not disciplined enough to maintain that mindset throughout the whole event or throughout even the whole of practice. You get to a certain point in practice and you're not catching the right fish, and so you kind of go like you're even the best angle gets affected by I can't come in with nothing. You know, my ego can't stand that. So you start to just find something to catch fish. And of course, that's the wrong thing to do. And it's again, you have to, most tournament fishing now, whether you're fishing scoping, whether you're fishing big swim baits, whether you're flipping, you have to have that D. Thomas mindset, which is Rick Clunn. He's going to catch 20 to 30 fish a day. I don't care, because I'm only going to catch 7, but I'm going to have 3 or 4 of my fish are going to be big ones, and he may catch 20 but only have 1 big one. So that's the mindset you have to pretty much have nowadays. If you're, because even I talk to these guys out there scoping, they're not finding wads of big fish. They can find wads of small fish, the same fish I'm catching, but they're not going to do them any good. They're hunting 1, 2, 3 fish, big fish a day. And even like Cody Huff will tell me, he'll say, he says, I caught 2 8s at Lake Fork, first day of practice. He says, yeah, I caught 2 8s and 2 6s. I only saw 2 more fish. I only saw 6 fish all day. And it was hard to find them. Hard. And I hear that 9 times out of 10. So they even have to have that D. Thomas mentality, even doing what they do. So if I'm Matt Robertson or Steve Kennedy and I'm going to throw big swim baits, you got to have that same mentality. You can't think I'm going to get a bunch of bites. It's the D. Thomas flipping mentality he brought from the West Coast to the East years ago.
I guess I'm kind of shocked too. I would think, and everybody looks at the grass always greener, but I look at everything you've accomplished, and it kind of shocks me that ego part would even play in your head, you know. But I guess it just never goes away. Like, I mean, I imagine if I had accomplished what Rick Clunn's accomplished, I don't care if I ever weigh a limit of fish. I'm going to try to win every tournament. Is that ego thing just something that never goes away for anyone?
I don't think it ever completely goes away, because ego is overall it's kind of a negative attribute, but it's not completely negative. There's a positive side to it, and that is that you care.
Yeah.
You care, and the ego's the first thing that shows you care. So if you just don't let it control you, I don't think it's totally a negative thing. And the ego is kind of mixed with testosterone. It makes you aggressive, and aggressiveness in all sports is very much needed. You got to be aggressive, not necessarily aggressive in a negative way, but aggressive. You direct that aggressiveness in a positive direction. You know, you don't, you know, the old saying you hear over and over, never give up. Well, the aggressiveness is one of the elements that won't allow you to give up. The ego is one of the elements that won't allow you to give up, because, you know, I mean, Harold Allen's wife, Kathleen, used to always tell Melissa when she first came on the circuit with me, Rick hadn't done a good tournament so far, Melissa, but he will pull a rabbit out of his butt before the day's over, before the tournament's over. And that ego and that aggressiveness and all of that is why you can do that sometimes. You don't give up. And I learned that from Roland Martin years and years ago. I drew him in a tournament, Project Sports tournament on Rayburn one of the first $50,000 paydays there was. And I drew him the second day, and neither one of us were doing great. And at the end of our day, we didn't do good that day. And at the end of the day, so I guess that's our tournament, Roland. And he says, nope, not mine. I'm not finished. I still got one more day. And he caught the biggest string of the final day and came back hard, you know. So, you know, all those elements it's kind of course, that's life. You know, you hope you have that throughout life, because life's going to throw everybody failure in some form or fashion. And so my dad, I watched him lose everything he had, and my mom, but he didn't give up. I remember that more than the bill collectors calling. I remember that more than anything. You know, it's that he didn't give up, and neither did my mom. So we talk about fishing a lot, like it's a real big, but it does run parallel to life a lot.
I got to believe ego also fuels. We talk about confidence in a much different light, but ego is what fuels that confidence. I mean, the more the ego gets fed, the more the fire for the confidence in a person. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I do agree with that. And so it does bring up the question, when is ego not good? And I think ego, one thing I don't like when I see a good player is when he turns cocky. You know, and we have them in our sport. You see them in other sports, they get cocky. And everybody says, well, if they can back it up, it's okay. Yeah, a little bit, but still, there's no reason to become cocky. There's no reason just because you've got super confidence that you have to put that person down, that other person down. And they tend to do that. You can elevate yourself without, pushing somebody else down. And so that's when ego to me kind of gets out of control. And it's probably not the only thing it does. So, but it's like all tools in life. They're double-edged swords. You use them right, they're good. You use them wrong, they're going to hurt you.
You always bring it, Rick. And hey, I went out on a limb and maybe I volunteered you for something. So I'm hoping that you agree to do this. But I just recorded with Kevin Van Dam. And while we were talking, I'm like, one of the coolest podcasts that could ever happen would be you two together. And he agreed to do it. Will you do it at some point this year?
I don't know. And there's
Why?
a reason for that.
Are you going to tell me the reason or no?
I'm thinking about it. No, I can't tell you. But and I guess the reason I'm reluctant to do it, I don't want it to turn into a competition. And every time I've ever been around Kevin, it's a competition. Everything, not just fishing. And I really admire and respect his ability to so much that Kevin Van Dam may have the best family I've ever been around. Randy, Sherry, Kevin's mom and dad, and what makes them better than Kevin and what makes them better than me is it's not competition with them. They admire everything that Kevin does, and he's had as good a family support as anybody I've ever observed in my whole career. But that's a tough question because I guess what I'm afraid of is Kevin and I could not be honest around in front of the camera. We'd have to hide too much, and And, you know, it's just, and maybe it's a difference in age too. You know, Kevin's still relatively young. I know we know all the turmoil that's going on in that area where he came from and retired from. I damn sure would have retired. I wouldn't even gone there, but I would have retired as quick as I could have got out there too. But, and I still think, and it's just me, I still think he's carrying some baggage there. And this is where me and him, if he was right here right now to defend himself, he would probably disagree, and maybe rightfully so.
Well, you said you didn't know whether it would be honest, but I think you just proved that by your answer. I mean, you easily could have spun it to be like, oh yeah, sure, we'll do that. And then as soon as we stop recording, you could have been like, yeah, I'm probably not going to do that. So let it just, but
Well, no, it's just something that I wish we could do it. But I'm not, I think we can, but I don't think the time's right.
okay. Well, yet again, our little conversation has turned into something totally different than I expected it to be, but it's always so rewarding. So I thank you for your honesty, and I thank you for being the person that you are. And why don't you just go win event 500? I mean, what? I mean, I don't want to put pressure on you or anything, but you'd like to, right?
Of course, but then I still wouldn't be finished because I doubt that if I win that, it'd be scoping. Because
So you'd still be.
I'm gonna win one scoping. We got a lot of scoping tournaments coming up, but I've got to make some major changes, and I got to back up that talk, and it's not going to be easy.
Well, you've always backed it up, and I look forward to. I mean, it's hard to believe it. Our next time we talk, you'll have. I mean, you'll be through those. I mean, you'll have fished 500 events, and we'll be looking at 501, 502. How? Let's just end it here. We've taken enough of your time. I feel like we highlighted the classic before we're done. What was your highlight of this year's Bassmaster Classic?
Personal, but it was all my family members staying there the day I was standing
So
with you
cool.
On the stage that final day. And like I said, the extended family. You know, I see the classic and this year's allowed me to see those people standing in those sitting in those stands yelling for us, and all those that have ever done that for what 35, 40 years. We've had weigh-ins inside. It's allowed me to see them in a completely different way. That my family's sitting there below me at the stage we were standing on, but we have an extended family, you know, in this sport, and we all have different feelings about things, you know, in different belief systems, but we all still love, you know, fishing. And that's important beyond catching fish. I stated earlier, it's important because the sanity of our society depends on the nature and the outdoors, and we need this fishing vehicle to keep us out there, keep bringing all these young kids into it.
And hey, they finally did get the cover of the magazine up on the screen right after you walked off stage.
That was 800 and some odd pictures on the cover of the magazine. That was amazing.
It was amazing. What was amazing was what I was hearing in my ear, because I'm like, they're like, talk about because we had planned. I'm like, we got to show that cover. It's such an incredible cover. And they're like, keep talking about it. And I'd already talked about it, so I continued to talk about it. And then as you walked off the stage, it came up.
Popped.
So it
It's okay.
it was a special moment up on stage. It was special to have. I think one of the coolest things about this year's classic, I think Justin Hamner's a great champion. I think it's a great story. But I think one of the coolest things was, and I think it's for several reasons. I think it's because of the show, the cast that became a thing. I think it's because of what you're celebrating. I think it's because Johnny Morris was the title sponsor of the classic. I think that the spotlight on the history of the sport at the Classic was one of my highlights, and not just yours, but everyone's history.
Yeah, and of course, Johnny and I have known each other since my very first tournament in 1974 on Beaver Lake, so I first met him. But who is considered the greatest conservationist in American history? Do you know? You're a Canadian, but you should probably know more than.
No, I would probably say it's a tie, in my opinion, between Johnny Morris and Roosevelt.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Roosevelt was the first due to John Muir and all the national parks. But Johnny does so much that most people, they see that Classic, they see him talking about conservation, but they don't see all the other conservation things he's involved in. And even in the Arctic, up in the Arctic,
Yeah.
and he is definitely by far the conservationist of modern day history, the biggest and greatest. So I was love to have him down there, just simply because that's been important to me. Back in my early days, I have on the back of my shirts, "Please recycle. There are no limits." I always had something that related to the outdoors on the back of my shirt. And all of a sudden, I've worked now for over 30 years with a person who that's his main thing. And everybody gets caught up in the capitalism part of it, the stores and museums and stuff, but I just no telling how much he's done for conservation.
It's incredible. I mean, I was involved in the Toronto store before it opened, and it was coming to a new market where everybody was like, "Oh, Bass Pro Shops." A lot of the retailers were concerned, and I remember personally being at events where they gave $750,000 out to different conservation groups before the doors even opened, before
Right.
a dollar was even made. I mean, it's incredible. Let me ask you this, because you said you remember meeting him, when you first started. Did anything about him stand out that this man, whatever he's going to accomplish in his life, is going to go on to great things?
No, not then. Because what I recognized him as the guy who had the fastest boat and would always run the furthest he could in the lake. That's all I remember. And his evolution was kind of a slow one. When it came, he was smarter than the rest of us. He knew he could make. If it was all about money, he could make money, a different way than trying to do it in tournaments. But no, I'll never forget the future tournament on Beaver Lake, where I often think about this. That Johnny sunk his boat right out in front of Copper Mine Lodge on Beaver Lake, and was writing a note to his family because he was drowning. He was holding on to a gas tank, and he thought he was drowning, and probably would have drowned in another 10, 15 minutes. And Billy Westmoreland from Tennessee come by and grabbed a hold of him and put him in the boat. What in the sport would be different if Billy hadn't pulled him in the boat? What in conservation, even more importantly, would be different if Billy hadn't pulled him in the boat? But here's the strange thing about Johnny. He's still trying to find that boat that sunk. He still wants to find that, and they never found that boat. So, but he called me up. "Did you see where I went down?" And this is a few years ago. "Did you see where it went down?" I said, "Yeah, it was right out there in front of Ford Creek." And he said, "Yeah, that's what." He said, so he said, Johnny, he's got the resources to send everybody down, but they can never find the boat. But that's just Johnny."
Wow. Well, we'll send some of those scopers out looking for his boat if it's
Exactly.
there.
Exactly.
They can find it.
Yep.
Rick Clunn, thank you.
Appreciate it, Mr. Mercer.
Mr. Let's not get all formal here. Great stuff from Rick Clunn, and never fails. I ask a question expected to go in one direction, and he takes it in a totally different direction. And he dropped a mister. So Maybe I need some Grecian formula for my beard or something. No, I'm not, I'm not doing that. I mean, I don't think beard dye looks very good on anyone. I mean, you just end up looking like Blackbeard. But a guy that doesn't worry about dye, a guy that really doesn't worry about much other than bass, a man who rode his first ever escalator at the Bassmaster Classic, at his first Bassmaster Classic, the only pro to ever qualify for the Bassmaster Elite Series from Maine, making him the main event, Tyler Williams. You're in a house. That's different for you. Normally your house is on the back of your truck.
Yeah, I got invited here this week, and I'm pretty sure it's haunted.
Come on.
We got doors that slam in the middle of the night. There's a checkered floor in the kitchen. Like, there's all these statues and old clocks everywhere. It's scary.
And you're still staying there?
Yeah, I kind of got used to all the doors slamming and stuff.
So tell me about this. So when did you first start thinking this house was haunted?
When I saw
what was the first
floor,
occurrence?
I walked in and saw a checkered floor, and then like statues on the tables and stuff, like little ones. And I'm like, there's no way. And yeah, then we'd be laying in bed, and I don't know if it's the wind or what, but then all of a sudden you'll hear like a door that was open just go wham. I'm thinking my camper's safe. I'm probably gonna leave a day early.
I would leave. I don't know. I'm worried about having this podcast. I don't need anything
Right.
climbing through the internet wires and coming into my life. I have enough things haunting me.
You saw my phone was leaned up against you. Be nervous.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
What is it leaned up against? What is that?
Oh no.
It's The Conjuring. Turn it around. I don't want to see any more. Oh my, wow. This podcast's off to a great start. So this is your life though. I mean, literally, dude, you like guys joke like, oh, being a pro angler is like being a truck driver, but you get to stop and fish every once in a while. But literally, you told me you're not going to be home until the Elite Series is over.
Yeah, I'll go home after the St. Lawrence. I left in like December. I'll probably leave even earlier next year.
So what'd you do on Easter?
I went fishing. Yeah, that's right. I did go fishing.
That's the story. Good. That's the story I think that nobody's talking about with this incredible rookie class. Dude, is it true? And I probably should have run this by you before I talked about it, but did you miss Thanksgiving and Christmas pre-fishing for the Classic?
Yeah.
So you have missed Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Easter.
I think I was there for Thanksgiving. I left just after Thanksgiving. And then I missed Christmas, then missed whatever other holidays and just stayed fishing.
Is that the plan for this foreseeable future?
Yeah. I'm fortunate that my family we don't do a ton with holidays and stuff. So I've been it was no big deal to go fishing. It's nice being with them. Our holiday was when my parents came to the Classic.
What did they think of that?
They couldn't believe how nice the people were down south. like you know how up north it gets kind of like people talk with their horns and stuff and traffic. Yeah. There wasn't a lot of that down there.
Well, I think
no, they liked it. It was fun.
People are happier when they're warm. I've found that.
I think so. I am. I know that much.
One of the biggest stories from the Classic, and we had fun with it on stage, but let's talk about it right now. You're first at the Classic, the escalator. Was that really like people think I made that up, but I saw the look in your eyes. You came to the top of the escalator. No. Like first time I've ever done. Well, gosh, did you do that or did somebody else?
I don't know. I need to find something to set right there.
Things start firing at your head. I'm just going to hang up just so you know this podcast is over.
Gosh.
You're not intimidated by a haunted house, but you are intimidated by an escalator. Really?
Yes, and a lot of little bugs.
What do you mean a lot of little bugs?
Dude, I was with Trey at the tire shop last night, and a ladybug landed on my thumb, and I screamed. It scared me.
Do they,
Just every
do they not have ladybugs in Maine?
We have those, but what's the deal with like hornets being red down here and stuff like that? Like we don't. I don't know. I don't like it.
You're talking to a Canadian asking about that, so you're probably not
Yeah,
asking the right person.
you're on the same level I am.
So were you literally take me through the escalator story. Like when you first walked in the door, was there like a moment of terror where you're like, I've seen these in
Well,
movies?
Well, I was with Kyle Patrick and Will Davis walking in, and they just kept walking, and I looked, and I'm like, where do we have to go? Because I didn't really know like where we need to be and stuff, and they're like, oh, it's up there, and I'm like, up there. I looked at the escalator. They just walk right up it, and I'm looking at it like I gotta make sure I step right. Like, what do? I step on like one of the cracks where it lifts up, and it was. Then I like ran up it. I didn't really need to run up it, but it was kind of sketchy.
How have you lived? How old are you?
22.
How have you lived 22 years and never been on an escalator?
I don't think I think the only place in my state that has one might be like the airport. It's not, everything's like one story or a basement.
Well, so how many times have you ridden it? I mean, I helped you, but we rode it down together. Did you ride it at all
That was
again that
last.
week? That was it.
No, I didn't.
Been up
That
one
was
and
it.
down one. That's it.
No, that was it. Yep. Even at the expo, I was like, I'm not going upstairs.
Well, who needs escalators when you can catch them like you do? A great
I'll
start to
stay
your
off the
elite.
ground.
Yeah, yeah, a great start to your Elite Series career. How you feeling about it?
I enjoy it. They're pretty fun to fish. I'm not gonna lie. I'm just having a good time. Um, It is what it is. Sometimes you catch them, and then there'll be times you don't.
Well, you've always caught them though.
Hopefully,
Like for the most part. I mean, you've made what, 2 top 20s?
in my elite career, yeah, my Opens
Yeah.
career is a little shaky. I'm still learning.
What feels different about the elites to you?
I I feel like it's like the one fish. I guess like in the opens, I was always concerned where I need a 2 pounder to fill up my limit because it's going to define my career. Like one fall and I'm in the opens again, and it's like bad. You know what I mean? And the elites, it's like I feel like I can gain a little bit more. Like I can fish how I fish back home, and it's just like free. It's like, oh, let me go check that real quick. Oh, let me go check this, and just because like also I think you have multiple days to make up a small mistake too if you do make one. But at the same time, those small mistakes can also be big rewards, which they have been a couple times. Even Toledo, I had a 9 pounder by the boat and it came off, and I was like, ah. But that was one of those decisions where I was like, let me just go try something weird real quick. And then it was close. It almost happened, but you're gonna lose a few, I guess.
Does it you said you feel free, and I think that's a good way to explain it. But I mean, going through fishing against 225 anglers, and now you're fishing against 100, but I mean, they're the 100 best. I mean, great
Right.
anglers, but there has to be a freedom just in like not every single inch of this lake has been fished.
Right. That is nice. Like in the opens, you'd have your really good anglers, and then you'd have ones that maybe wouldn't have it figured out, but they take up space. Where it's like you want to run to that hump, but there's a boat sitting on it, even though they're not catching anything, but they're sitting on top of the fish. And then just things like that, where it's like, and the lakes we go to too lately they've had a lot of water you can go fish. They haven't really fished small. So I don't know how it'll be when we go somewhere that fish is small, but everywhere's been pretty wide open, and it's been really enjoyable.
Well, you're an enjoyable cat to hang out with, and I think you've been. I mean, everybody talks about the elite rookies having a hard time, and I think that's part of coming into the sport. I think it's part of starting a new job at a restaurant. It doesn't. There is a breaking in period, you know, like, but I would say that just because of your personality, you've been pretty welcomed. I mean, you've had good experiences
Yeah.
so far, right?
Yeah, everybody's been pretty nice to me. I'm like, I hear things here and there about other people, but I'm like, well, they were nice to me when I saw them, so I got nothing on them and stuff like that. Just I'll be in the bag line, people talk to me, and I'm like, oh, I didn't think they'd talk to me, but we just started talking, and it seems like everybody's pretty cool for the most part. Not that they're going to be your best friends by any means or anything, because we're still fishing for each other's money, but it's just like there's no fist fights and bag lines or anything like that.
So how did you get here? I know nothing about you. I mean, all I know is you come from Maine and you throw a jig 99% of the time. You don't like wearing shoes. You giggle a lot. What tell me about the main event before you were a main event. Before, what were you like as a child?
Uh, like when you say child, like, do you mean like
Well, you're
a year
22.
ago or like?
No, no, I mean like 10 years ago, let's say.
I see. Yeah, I mean, I was more than less into like no matter what I put my mind to, I was going to try to be the best at. And I was like playing a lot of baseball and football when I was younger. But then I kind of got into fishing once the whole YouTube thing came around and I started watching it a lot. And I was like, we have so many lakes back home. It's really easy to just go fishing for a few minutes down the road.
Yeah.
And I just my dad would do fence measures or something, and like because we have a fence company back home, and he'd go to measure the fences, and I'd look on Google Maps, be like, oh, there's a boat ramp here, can you drop me off for a half hour while you do that so I can go fishing? And we'd do that all day, like most of the days. Other if I was in school I wouldn't do it, but as soon as I got out of school I'd want to go fishing somewhere on the bank. And I used to just throw like a little trout magnet on a bobber when I first started and catch like sunfish or whatever, but then it kind of turned into bass, and it's been fun.
So then you screw baseball and football. Is that like, did you immediately stop playing that stuff?
Pretty much, yeah, for the most part. Things got really political in our area with the sports too. So it was like multiple towns.
Well, how did it get political?
Like if you were from a certain town, it was like you weren't as like highly looked at as the kids from that town because it's all like just like 3 or 4 towns going to the same school, things
Uh-huh.
like that. So it's just it didn't end up good on the sports side. So then I was like, I need to do something individual, and fishing's really a good individual sport.
It's one of the weirdest
And
things in the world where no matter where you're from, like you grow up as a kid hating the town beside you. Like the town I live in is
yeah,
called Port Perry. The high school beside us was a town called Uxbridge, and we called it Sucksbridge because I mean you
right,
had to, and they had names for us too, I'm sure. But it is so dumb how like
right,
it's just a school thing. Like you're bred to like dislike that person unless of
right,
course it becomes like state and then you're all on the same team and then you have to
right.
then you like
Like
each
once you get
other.
to the next level, it's all through. But it was kind of weird. But I was
So
also super young too.
well, you're still super young.
Yeah, just super, super young, I guess.
So when did you like how old were you when you said, hey man, when you figured out what the Bassmasters is and you figured out this was something
Right.
you wanted to do?
I I think I had like got my confidence up where I started catching fish really good. It was about when like the Whopper Plopper first came out. And I was throwing that a lot, and I was throwing a jig a lot, and I was like, I was catching 3 to 5 pounders, like 1 or 2 every time I'd go. And I'm like, I think I'm pretty good at this. Like, let me try a tournament. So then I entered like a small tournament, and I ended up getting. So the thing is, I didn't know how to practice. So I went out the day before and caught like 20 pounds. And then I didn't know about shaking fish off, not hooking fish. I was like, oh, if the fish are biting, that's where they are, right? You're going to catch them on the same spot no matter what. And that didn't apply. So the next day, I think I caught like 13 pounds or something. And I got a lunker in the tournament with like a 4 pounder, and I got second place. But for me, in my first tournament, that was a lot. So then I just tried to enter a few more like bigger ones. And then I got my teeth kicked in. And then it seemed like I just got really into the tournament aspect of it. So I wanted to get better and better and better. And then I'd like just research YouTube, then go out and try to apply it somewhere. Cause being where we're from, there was always somewhere you can apply something. And then it just turned into like every year I'd get a little better. Like I'd like get near the top 10 out of like a 60 boat tournament or something, which that was pretty good back then. And then like I'd win one. And then the next year I'd win like three, and then top 10 a lot more. And then the next year I'd win like 5 or 6 or whatever. And then it got to the point where I won a lot of them. And then I was like jumped into the opens and kind of did it all over again. It felt like
Do
more
you think
top tens than win.
do you think that teeth kicking period isn't important? I mean, it's like everybody's got to go through it. I mean, you go through the
Right.
local level and you come up. Do you think
Right.
that's an important part
It's
of your development as an angler?
Yeah, I know for me it is, because like I know I go over my skill levels. Like maybe I don't quite belong there yet, if you know what I mean. But like I'm gonna try it, and then I get that happens, and then I force myself to get better. It's no different than like when you put a young kid like on a baseball team that with a little bit older kids, and then you suddenly see that kid get better than all the kids his age. It's really interesting that way, and it seems like the same way in fishing for certain people, anyways.
So you started fishing tournaments, you started doing good, and then when did you say, "Hey, man, Dad, this is something I think I'm going to do. Screw fences. I am doing this."
Yeah, I it's kind of been the goal the whole time, to be honest. Like just be the best I could at it. Just like personal goals. And then it just next thing I knew, I was fishing regionals, going to nationals, and fishing team championships. And that's kind of like how I got it rolling. Then I tried the opens, did one division my first year, and I think I was like 11th or tied for 10th in points, which I didn't even know the points existed when I entered the opens, to be honest. I just knew they were really high level tournaments. So I was like, then I'm like, oh wow, I'm that close. Then I learned about the whole thing and tried to do all 9 the next year. And it was pretty rough that first year. I towards the end I started to learn some things and then applied it for what was last season. And then last season worked out, I guess. I still don't know how it did, but
Well, it kind of did. I mean, you won an open, and and
yeah.
then and me and you kind of corresponded after you won that open. But you were still pretty like, I said get in the elites, and
It
you said,
was
I don't know. Like, how long in your head? How long did you think it was going to take you to get to the elites?
I know I was honestly thinking it would be like this season, like if I was in the opens again this season, because
Yeah.
usually like seems like things take about 3 years, and I considered that first year of just doing three, like I wouldn't call that a full year, and we did it in two. I guess it was kind of like last year felt like 2 years though. Like the first half of the season felt like a whole different time period than the second half, but I went really hard in the middle of the summer and just like stayed at certain places like for really long periods of time and just fished every single day. And I didn't even know how much better I was getting, but I got a lot better at that time. And it might even be confidence too, just gaining confidence in how to fish how I like to. And it worked out somehow. I'm really humbled by it. That's why I'm like, I'm just here. But
So right now, when we're recording this, you're at Lake Murray, correct?
yeah,
And then you're going to go to Florida and kick off the floor. By the time this airs, we'll be ready for the Florida swing to start.
that'd be cool.
But when you are on the road like you are now, like, are you literally on an Elite Series lake every? Like,
I try to
what's the
be
last 30 days been like for you?
the well, mostly the classic. That was so after Fork, I do need a little bit of break sometimes where I just stay in a camper for like 2 days straight and don't move. But
You just lay
then
around?
pretty much I either sleep or I'm fishing. One of the two. Basically have a down day and then get back out there. And so it basically went Fork, finished that up, and then stayed there and fished for like 3 more days after that just to kill time between then and the classic, because I felt like if I drove where was it? Was it St. John's? I think it was one of the Florida ones, the second Florida one you could still pre-practice for. And I was like, if I drive there though, it's gonna kill me to drive all the way back. I'm like, let's be smart about this and just have a couple down days and go to Grand. And then did Grand, which that was a long week with the way practice was like way before, and then just everything throughout the week. And then right after that, stayed 2 more days with my parents to actually spend some time with them, and then it came here basically.
So had your parents been to the opens and stuff, or was their first big tournament the classic?
Their first big one was the classic.
So you just been telling them about it, bringing home trophies and stuff, and being like,
Pretty
and then
much.
they
They
showed up at the
follow it pretty.
classic.
Yeah, they always go to my local tournaments, but they never really go out of Maine or anything between the business and then it's a pretty big thing to just like drive across the country. And they this was their first big one. And I told them originally, like if I win one like through the opens, like win winning an open is going to be like more important than say I get 40th place in AOI points and make it that way. Like this might be the like most important one I get to fish. So it'd be cool. And then they bought an RV and drove down, stayed next to me at the campsite and everything. It was cool.
So the classic for you, I mean, your first experience, first of all, you did say something there that, I mean, driving across the country is a pretty big deal. Like, I mean, how do you do? I mean, you're 22 and you're on the elites now. So you started this quest like when you were 20, driving across the country. Like, I mean, how many there must have been a lot of nerve-wracking times where you're like, what the hell am I doing?
Oh, there's a lot of moments. My first time driving across, I was 17 for a high school national championship and drove to Kentucky Lake myself. Because they'd never been out, they didn't really know what they were sending me to. And I'm like, when I realized like how sketchy some places was, and then not being old enough to get a hotel room at most places, like that kind of sucked too. And then just things like that. But I didn't really tell them too much because I wanted to still be able to do it. And now they see, they're like, wow, I can't believe we did that. I'm like, glad you did.
It amazes me. I mean, it amazes me even more when you see like people like Kyoya and how he, you know what I mean? Like he literally doesn't speak. I mean, his English is getting much better, but you imagine like how tough it is for you. Well, imagine for him, you know, like he has no idea. Like, I mean, never mind escalators. He hasn't done a lot of this stuff.
Right. I wouldn't be surprised if he'd been on an escalator before me.
Probably so. Most people by the time they're 22. Had your parents been on one?
I don't know. I'm not really sure. I almost don't think so. I really don't think they have. They might have. I don't know. It was a long time ago if they were.
Watching you fish, you seem to really simplify things. Is it as simple as it looks from the outside?
I mean, you got to have some like tricks up your sleeve and stuff, like just different ways to work things, but it's fairly simple. It's more about finding fish, I think. Finding spots, always having something that you can go to that has like a fish sitting on it or something. I don't know. I always like, I kind of live by I just go out there and do stuff. And everybody's like, what do you mean you just do stuff? And I'm like, I just, whatever. I go see if they're here, see if they're there, see if they're over there. Like, I'll try to find them somewhere.
So you spent an incredible amount of time pre-fishing for the Classic. When you went into those final 3 days, which was a week before, I get it. But if you go into those final pre-fish days, I mean, you're not just going out there to just do stuff. I mean, you had a game plan, did you not?
I mean, I try to spot fish more than anything. And sometimes it works out really well, and then sometimes it doesn't. Like, because I can pre-practice a lot, I try to be like a local on these lakes. And I think locals get mad at me because they'll see me on like their super secret spot that they've had for 20 years and never seen a boat on, like things like that. But it's just that one. I mean, I tried to find the stuff in pre-practice and then relate what they're doing to like what I have once I get back there. And I didn't really quite understand the lake that well, like to start with. Like I could do some things when it was cold, but I knew it was going to change, and it changed quite a bit. But it was not an easy tournament, and I guess I had enough fish to get me through one day. Then second day I just tried to get by. I thought they'd come to me, and they didn't really move in the afternoon much, and then I had 12 pounds.
Did you really choose your spot on Fork just because it was the one area of the lake that didn't have all sorts of wood for you to get snagged on?
Yeah, I hate timber. Losing jigs, hit my trolling motor off of it. I'm like, I'm gonna do something different here.
You also went to an area that hardly anyone ever fishes because there's no wood there.
I'm not gonna lie. I look at maps, like any of the old footage, and I go, where has a boat never been in one of these? And that's where I go. I don't know if it's normal or what, but that's what I try to do.
I think maybe the only other individual that totally understands how your brain might work is John Cox. Have you spent any time with John Cox? You're a lot like John Cox.
I have a little bit. I think I'm like the offshore version of John.
Because at a time when everybody wants to turn this whole sport into a science project, you're very like,
Right.
just go fishing.
Right. That's what it is. I really don't know. I just kind of found what I like to do and try to go find where I can do what I like to do, whether it's somewhere that's known or somewhere that's like completely new to everybody, which is nice when they're known because you're not showing anybody new things, but it's all right.
So when you're pre-practicing all these lakes, are you literally just like, I'm gonna go, like you said, you go to where other people have never fished? Like, do you believe that
Yes.
there's fish everywhere throughout the lake? You just got to figure out how to catch them.
Yeah, like a lot of times I'll fish. Like if I know somebody's gonna get 30 bites a day, I'll still go fish where I can get 5, and just as long as I can do what I like to do. It sometimes works out. It's fishing, so you never really know.
So what do you like to do?
Just throw a jig at targets, stuff like that.
All right, makes sense.
Throw a jig at unpressured fish, preferably.
I feel like the way you fish, and I love it. I mean, it's so fun to. I mean, one of the coolest things about fishing, and I think it's one of the reasons that Takumi has as many fans as he does, is everybody relates to the excitement and the passion of catching a fish. And I think you do a
Right,
very good job of kind of showing that you're out here to have fun. At any time do
right.
you get concerned that, like, hey, all these other dudes are turning this into a science project and I'm just giggling my way to top tens? Do you
It's I'd rather just giggle my way to top tens. Just I try to put it like on cruise control and just go fish. Like I don't really look at the field. I just know what I kind of need to catch in my head and try to go do it. And I would say like Harris last year, I'm like, if I go down, like I don't want to go bomb doing what I'm supposed to do. I'd rather go bomb doing what I like to do because at least I know I did what I like to do, and then I caught him, so it was okay.
so what's your relationship like with Florida?
I don't. My worst tournament ever was there, but it was also like my first Southern Open. I had to borrow a boat because mine broke down. Like it wasn't good. Like I don't know. I like Florida. Florida's just it's kind of nice because it's different every time.
You have a pattern of breaking boats. I mean, you want an open with a boat that well, what happened? Your trolling motor didn't charge you. You were on your hands and knees driving it around.
It was like, yeah, so the breaker at my campground tripped and my batteries didn't charge like through the middle of the night. So I took off in the morning with like 10% on my trolling motor batteries. I had them till like 9 o'clock and then had no trolling motor the whole rest of the day. I was like on the front of the deck, leaned over using it as like a turret to just like use my live scope and trying to throw at stuff.
Yeah, it worked out okay.
Yeah, my
Worked.
back hurts so bad after that though. I'm not really built to be doing like I have like 1 foot near the mount and then a graph between my legs and then like 1 foot on the front, like right under the graph. That way I could bend over with my trolling motor. And then when I swing back, I just hope the fish was big enough that I wouldn't go splat on the back deck and like fight them on the nose of the boat. I only got a few bites, but they were big enough.
Were you like pissed off during all that? Like I've never seen a pissed off version of you. Do you get mad sometimes?
No, I kind of that one I looked at and I was like, dang it, well, I'm at a disadvantage now. And then I tried to do what I could to like fix it and like do what I could, but then there was really nothing I could do. So then I was like, well, they're gonna catch him either way, so I gotta figure out a way to catch him, get back in this.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So, girlfriend
No,
ever?
girls are scary, dude. No, I play with bats.
But you like female bass, right?
Yeah, big ones.
Everybody loves them big girls. Um, this isn't a very good life for a guy who is concerned about getting a girlfriend. Is that where? So let's just order of importance.
Yeah,
Where is that on the scale for you?
I like food, so I could be convinced if one knew how to cook, but it's not very important.
Have 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 you ever had a girlfriend?
Not really, no.
Screw that.
I just
Go
fish.
bass fishing.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha. If you keep if you keep catching them, those
It's,
temptations may come calling.
oh boy.
There's not enough room in the camper for two, is there?
No, not with me in it. JT's is nice because he's this big. So it's like, I hit my head when I go in it.
Yeah. How did you and JT become a thing? Because to be honest, when I see you two walking together, it's like Team Biggie Smalls.
I
All
hate
right.
going in restaurants with him. We'll go through a crowded restaurant and he just gets through everyone. And I'm like, excuse me, pardon me. And then I can't even find where he went and sat down. So I end up walking all around the place. It's bad. No, we kind of start through the opens. It's like those opens friendships that you make just along when you're on the road for so long. Because he's the one other person who's home and like never home. Like he goes home more now than ever, and it's for like 3 days at a time. And we usually would get campgrounds around each other, and then just as it went on, we became really good friends. It's
And
pretty cool.
you guys work together as far as breaking down bodies of water, do
Yeah,
you?
yeah, we're like brothers at this point.
Yeah.
It's we got a good system going.
Like twins. Have you ever seen the movie Twins?
Yeah, it's no, I haven't seen it.
Well, it involves Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito. And
Really?
here's the good news. In this movie, you're the Arnold Schwarzenegger, and
Hey, that's good.
he's the Danny DeVito. You guys look a lot different, but you're both part of this
Yeah,
incredible rookie class. I've heard you guys talk about that a lot, like how, and I think it's one of the things that came from going to 9 events that
yeah,
nobody really thought about, but you guys really are more than any other rookie class. Like everybody knows each other. Like, is that just the amount of time you
right. I
spent on
think
the road together?
I don't. It might have been honestly between that and like the gauntlet we went through, like how hard it actually was to get through the opens last year. That everybody was kind of like became close to each other, and even if you didn't really know the other person, you want to like they're good people, so you want to get them in, like that kind of thing. Just trying to help everyone out and get in when we can. If somebody had zero fish running by you, you wouldn't be like, oh man, that sucks. You'd be like, well, there's a couple over here, go get them, even if you don't know them that well, and just hope it comes back at some point. And usually it would with these guys. Everybody's like really tight.
What's your favorite thing about fishing? Like if you had to pick one element where you're like, man, that's what I do it for.
Probably just when I'm alone on the water, I just enjoy my time out there. Just being alone and just no boats around me. Like when you get in one of those kind of like lakes that you're the only boat out there, it's just such a nice feeling. Just being one with the lake.
So being one with the lake and being all alone is your happiest place. What is the worst place for you? Like if I said, "Hey, let's go somewhere where you're not going to enjoy yourself at all," where would we be
Ozarks,
going?
Ozarks Labor Day weekend, trying to fish out there. I only know because I did it last year.
All right,
It's bad.
all right. That went a whole different direction. I was meaning like something totally removed from fishing, but
Oh, fair
Ozarks
enough.
Labor Day
I'm just
weekend
thinking
can be.
like jet skis in my head. That's when you say the thing I hate the most, probably jet skis.
Why do you hate jet skis?
They do some things that are sketchy.
Have you
I
have you
don't
ever
know.
have you ever rode in a jet ski?
I've ridden one and sunk one.
How did you sink a jet ski?
I didn't know jet skis had plugs. We bought one, just a little like couple $100 one, and I was gonna play around at our camp, and I'm like, man, this thing's getting slower and slower. Like, what is going on? So then I parked it like by our dock, and next thing I knew, it was like underwater, and I'm like, what? Like, why is this thing sinking? And then I realized it had a plug, but the plug was missing.
Yeah, those pesky plugs was. So that from that moment forward, you just screw jet skis. That's not going to be part of my life.
Yep.
I gotcha. I gotcha. Have you sunk a lot of different things in your life?
I've sunk a kayak, a paddle boat. It's just me and little boats. It might be because I'm this big, but Just something about it. The pedal boat was like 3 times trying to get back to where we took it from.
Are you talking about like a pedal boat, like the actual, like you?
Yeah, when your feet are doing this,
Oh, those
like
are horrible.
I lost like 2 rods and a couple tackle boxes. It was bad. And when it tipped, it would do one of these where it like just nosedive and you go into the water.
They're a horrible
So
invention. I mean, who thought of a square-nosed boat? I'm going to make a boat. It's going to be square. And the weird thing is, when people buy places on lakes, it's like everybody buys one of those, like, or it comes with it. Like
right.
we're going to go out in the pedal boat and we're going to love it. And then it just becomes like they use it once and then it sits on their shore and becomes a great ground for mosquitoes to.
Right. Or it's like half sunk in the water and you got to make sure you flip to it.
There is some good fish under them, though.
Sometimes.
So, how'd you sink a kayak?
I don't really know. I think I set the hook on a fish and I was trying to stand up in it. It was a canoe and it
Oh,
kind of did
canoe,
one of
sorry.
these and it sunk surprisingly quick. We were on like a school trip and next thing I know, a little bit of water came over the side when I leaned to set the hook and then it just went and then it sucked because a weed touched my foot when I was in the water and everything.
You don't like the weeds touching your feet?
No. Like when we were on Harrison, I thought I was gonna fall. Like I flipped the fish that like got me to the Elite Series in the boat, and then I don't know if you ever saw that clip where I almost fell in the water. Like I had to grab the side of the boat. Like it was it didn't look as sketchy as it actually was, but I know my balance and I was pretty close to being in the water. But then I was thinking about like if I couldn't get in the boat, like having to swim through the Kissimmee grass and go onto shore and get in, that would be the worst thing ever.
So bass boats, that's more stable, more your approach.
Big bass boats.
Yeah, I got you. I got you. What was school like for you?
It was something. Me in school, yeah. My mom did a lot of schoolwork for me. But we so like middle school, I like did online school and then I went to a charter school for high school. And
Okay.
then it
What
was
is a
cool.
charter school? Sorry, my dumb Canadian. I'm not
I
sure
don't
what's.
it wasn't public school. I still don't really know that much. It was supposed to be like an agricultural school, like an outdoors based school. And
Okay.
what really sold me is we had no school on Mondays. The school year was a little bit longer, but like you could fish a tournament Sunday and then still have Monday off, which was awesome. It was,
Perfect.
yeah, it was nice. The school days were a little different, like a little shorter, and just a lot of it was schedule based.
Okay.
And
Did you get good grades?
my mom did. No, I did. I mean, I got through school. I graduated, so that must be
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
I
No.
didn't do college fishing or anything. I just was like opens or fencing, one of the two.
Did you think about doing the college thing? I mean, when you see how much, like, I mean, I never thought about college either, but I mean, college didn't think about me either.
Right.
But
Well,
I see everything that goes on with it now, and I'd be like, I mean, that's
yeah,
pretty appealing.
yeah, it is. I mean, we fished uh the high school nationals and the first year we got 10th, so we were like awarded like some small scholarships. And then I was thinking about it because I mean fishing scholarships are kind of cool, but then I like really got thinking about it and I thought about how much I hated school. So I was like, I'm just gonna not go to school and do something else.
So the opens are fencing, and you. How many more years would you have fished the opens? Do you think if it didn't happen for you last year?
I would have had to like feel it out each year because I mean, if I like got 100th in every tournament and it was just on like a downhill slope, I probably wouldn't have kept doing it. But if it kept getting better, like just even a little bit, I probably would have kept trying. Just 2 years at least, maybe 3. But there's also a point where you kind of got to look at it and be like, all right, I'm not meant for that.
Yeah, yeah. No, I hear you. I hear. Well, the good news is you made it. You're on the Elite
Yeah,
Series.
they bit my jig.
How much of the rest of your season do you believe? I mean, first of all, how the first 2 events this season, what percentage
Yeah.
of your fish have you caught on a jig?
just about all of them. There's only been like 2 fish I haven't.
Okay. Well, what percentage the rest of your season do you think will be caught throwing a jig?
Hopefully all of them. I'm gonna hope for every single one of them, but at least probably 70%.
Why do you not throw other things?
I throw other things, and like because live you can see like fish's immediate reactions. Like I'll try to deep crank, and I watch fish run away from my crankbait. I'm like, why? Like a guy can sit right next to me, like John Garrett's done before, and just catch them and catch them and catch them, and I'm like, how do you get bit on a crankbait? And then I'll like have to throw a jig in there, and I catch one. I'm like, well, I guess this is just my thing. Like I just do whatever they bite.
So if you're a jig guy, who was were you a big Hackney fan growing up? Like what Elite Series pro did you look at and be like, that now there's the dude who I want to fish like?
It was Hackney was cool, especially when he went to Maine. It was one of the like MLF events, those little Summit Cup championships, but he was on my home lake, Great Pond, and he like I have a largemouth bite that I go do, and it's kind of sneaky. And I watched him catch like a 7-pounder, which a 7 was huge for that tournament. And largemouth are very rare in that lake. And he was just flipping a jig, and I'm like, that's cool. That's the right thing to be doing for big ones. But
Have you get to hang out with Hackney much on the Elite Series yet?
I haven't yet. I think he's commentated a couple times that I've been fishing, but I haven't got to like introduce myself or anything yet.
So will you be nervous around him or?
Probably not. Be like, say hi. We'll see. It depends if he looks at me funny.
So what makes you nervous? Just girls? Or they don't even
Yeah,
make you nervous. You're just not.
it's probably spicy food. Like wondering if the food I'm getting down south is going to be spicy or not. That makes me pretty nervous.
You don't like spicy.
No, I come from lobster and pasta country.
I feel you. I feel you. I'm the same. I always tell people I'm like, I was born in Ireland. I live in Canada. To my people, mayonnaise is spicy. We don't.
Well, we've been in the house.
What?
We've been in the house cooking this week, and like JT will be cooking a hamburger, and he's like, you got to try this seasoning. Like I'm putting seasoning all over it. I'm like, can you just cook the hamburger with butter, like just nothing on it, like just plain as can be. And everybody's been picking on me all week for that.
Well, I mean, hey, you got to eat what
No
you. I mean,
spices.
no spices.
At least I'm eating.
Yeah, yeah. Do you guys always cook when you're on the road? Is that kind of the MO? Like when you're camping, is JT
Yeah.
camping with you? Like what's
Sometimes, a lot of times we'll end up going out, or like we'll get off the launch at different ramps or something, not get back together, and we'll just get something. Like I live on Subway usually.
Subway?
Yeah,
It's
it feels
reliable.
like the safest thing I can get somewhere down south that isn't gonna mess me up.
So what's your
But
goal for this
sometimes
season?
we'll have a good rookie year. I don't really know. I'm just seeing where it goes. I don't really have too many goals.
Just fishing.
Yeah, I just want to stay here for a long time.
Yeah, I'd like you to stay around for a while too.
I think probably my whole goal, even going through this, like qualifying for the Classic was awesome, but it was still like kind of a side quest for like what the whole goal was. And it was like, I just want to fish my whole life. That's all I really care about.
Stay away from fencing.
Yeah.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. I mean, fencing can be hard work.
Yeah.
So when you don't go home until after the elites, is how much of that is I need to fish and how much of that is I just want to avoid fencing?
It's okay. My dad probably won't be impressed, but a lot of it was to try to like, it wasn't because I wanted to avoid fencing, but I did like being on the road. And now it's like, now I want to fish. Even when I go home, I want to go fish. But it was always pretty good. It wasn't terrible. I'd be like, if I was home and one of our like installers needed something, I'd bring a part to him, or if he had a small job, he'd send me out on it, or me and my buddy Josh. And I really got to shout out Josh because Josh kind of carried the like young guys through at the fence company while I've been gone.
Oh, so Josh actually works.
Yeah.
One of those old fashioned folks. It So what is your biggest concern for the rest of the season? Like, does anything make you nervous? Or are you literally just gonna
I don't
giggle your
really,
way through it?
I'm probably just gonna giggle my way through. I don't really get nervous. I don't really know. Probably just trying to get back in one piece at some of the places, not break anything.
Avoid escalators.
Yeah. Avoid cities usually.
Yeah, it's not a bad
It's-
approach.
I mean, a lot of times I have to drive through like New York City and then Jersey City and Baltimore and then like all those cities to go down south, and I try to avoid them as much as I can.
Yeah, I don't. Did I just hear a clock go off, or you're being haunted? What am I hearing?
It's a dryer. I can go shut it off real
Oh
quick.
no, you're fine. You're fine. I just wanted to know if there was
Okay.
a spirit about to
If it's gonna
attack the
keep
show.
doing it, I might have to.
No, you're good. You're good. We've had much more distracting things happen on this show.
At least I cleaned my clothes.
Yeah. Hey, that's good. It's a great thing. So how many weeks out of the year are you actually in a physical house? This is rare for you, right?
This is kind of rare. Yeah, it's not very often. Usually it's just camper, but everybody was staying here and the campgrounds were a little hard to find. Like a lot of them were booked. So I was like, I'll go to the house. And
So did you guys rent this place or what?
yeah, it's under
Did you?
JT's name, so we got to be really careful.
Okay. Okay. So did it say in the listing that it was haunted or no? They never do.
No, JT texted the guy and asked him if anybody had ever said anything weird about this place because there's been some weird. He's like, he doesn't believe in any of that, and he was starting to believe. He was like getting freaked out. We were up at like 2 a.m. one day just because we were freaked out.
What? Just the slamming doors?
Just weird stuff, dude. like like JT's room was the most haunted room by far. Like you open the dresser up and there was like old pictures and like scary old pictures, like black and white ones, and you'd be like, nah. Good. And he had his door one night, he'd go to bed and then it locks pretty good. Like it's not like a loose door that could just open, but then it would be open. Like it opened 3 times that night after he closed it.
Three
He was freaked
times.
out. And then I was up the same night at like 2:30 a.m. and I was like, did I just hear a door? Like, what was this when we were first figuring out that it was kind of sketchy? Like, there were some crazy things happening. There's like
Wow.
grandfather clocks in a couple of the rooms, and there's one out here. And I want to figure out how I can get it off, go off in the middle of the night to Rob G's with us too, to freak him out.
Rob G's got, I've heard from some of his other roommates that he's got some bathroom issues. Have you experienced those this week?
No,
Well, you're
I
lucky.
haven't.
You're lucky. He can
No,
haunt the house in a whole different
I might
way.
have. I might have got him back actually this morning.
Oh,
Yeah. I think I got him before you got me.
well, the glamorous life of the Bassmaster Elite Series. Will you look back one day and be like, those were the good old days? We were staying in haunted houses and had nothing to do but fish.
For sure. Absolutely.
Let's
I,
let's look
yeah.
ahead. 10-year plan. 10 years from now,
Yeah.
what do people say about you?
Hopefully good things. I think good things. I don't really know. I've had so many things even already that I just thought were normal for me that I've turned into things like the barefoot stuff and all that. I'm like, this cool. I don't have to like put on an act or anything. I'm just weird enough anyways that it's working out. So
Well,
something.
and I mean, I've told you this. I mean, just be who you are. And I think you have been who you are. And
Yeah. Yeah, you
you
said that.
were,
I'm like, that shouldn't be a problem.
did you ever think of acting a different way?
I don't really think I could.
Yeah, that'd be
I'm
hard.
not exactly good at acting.
That'd be hard.
Yeah,
You're a lot of fun to watch. You're a puzzle.
appreciate
I'm
it.
learning more and more about you. You sink a lot of different vessels. I'm glad you found your way onto a bass boat.
I'm glad I got a
Uh,
remote drain plug.
yeah, they should put those in jet skis.
Yeah, they should.
let's just okay. I'm going to take you away from fishing next
right.
week. Let's just say no, never mind next week because you're fishing a tournament
I was
next
gonna
week.
say we're fishing next week.
Yeah, you finish this Florida swing. Let's say it goes great.
Yeah.
Couple of two more top 20s. Maybe you win one. Who knows? Doesn't matter. But you got a week off. You
Yeah.
can't go fishing. Cannot go fishing. You got a week off.
Really?
What are you going to do?
I can't go fishing?
No.
Probably study fishing in my camper. I might go play mini golf if I get really bored.
Are you a big mini golfer?
It's fun. It's something to do.
Like putt, not like the full golf, just the mini golf.
Just the mini golf. Yeah.
Why
I don't
not
know.
actual golf?
I don't know. I've never played it. I've just
Just
played mini golf. Usually because it involves ice cream.
mini, mini golf involves ice cream?
There's ice cream stand next to it.
It's a good way to live life. Dude, I really
Yeah, no,
enjoy
it's
Go ahead. Sorry, what were you saying?
oh, I was just saying I probably would just study fishing, but that's also an option too. Going and play mini golf.
So how do you when you say you would study fishing, how do you study it?
Just go deep into old articles and YouTube and find whatever little nuggets you can about some of these places. You can usually know what you need to do before you even get there.
Is this going on chat boards and stuff like that? Or are you just like what first step? Okay.
Sometimes,
So
or like YouTube videos, stuff like that. Just deep into, if you can find one that's got like 200 views, but it's actually a good video, just never blew up or anything. It's like, yes, that's a good one. Things like that. I watch a lot of Bassmaster live from history. Just like I've watched the 8-hour segments probably 3 times now for
wow.
most of these places. And
What's
then
your
it's like, you know what you need to do. And then I try to go find what I call Tyler stuff. And I usually go find Tyler stuff. The research doesn't usually help that much, but sometimes it does help a lot.
what's your favorite Bassmaster live moment in the past? Like, well, before you were here, when you look like obviously you're partial to some of the stuff from
Right.
Fork when you were actually on it. But
Yeah.
before, when you're just studying, what are some moments that stand out where you're like, that was awesome?
It's fun seeing the guys get excited because you can kind of relate to them. Like when they get really pumped up. I mean, when Van Dam won on Toledo Bend, that was pretty cool. Like
Yeah.
cranking out there and stuff like that. But honestly, my favorite one recently, it was still at Fork, but like watching the footage after was Trey going, I'm gonna boat flip him on this pistol grip. It was so funny. I'm gonna say it one of these days on air.
Yeah. He's a bizarre little man. Like, I mean, you're all a little bizarre, but he's bizarre in the way that, like,
Yeah.
you look like you're created just to mini putt and eat ice cream and have a good time. And I'm all about it. I mean,
Yeah.
you're kind of a John Daly type character without all the bad
Oh, God.
vices.
Yeah.
But Trey looks like he was like created on another planet, like a droid that was made to just take things. Like,
Right. He's
do you
something.
do you find him frustrating or motivating?
It's a little bit of both. Like we got that camaraderie competitiveness, and I think it helps us a lot. Like you don't really look at where you need to finish in the tournament. You just want to beat your buddies, but you're fishing at a high level at the same time. And it's Trey's just like that little brother that's like an overachieving little brother. It's so funny. It's cool though.
Very cool. I mean, it's been awesome to watch, and nobody likes that overachieving little brother. Do you have any other siblings in your life? I'm trying to learn about you here.
I
Brother,
don't. I'm an
sister?
only child.
Only child.
Yeah. It's yeah.
All right. All right.
There's not really a whole lot. I fish a lot.
I can tell. I can tell. What are you doing the rest of today? Okay, you're off the water today. Did you literally specifically stay off the water because of me?
Yeah. That and it's windy out.
Well,
It's
I'm
a good
sorry.
excuse not to go out there today.
I gotcha. So what are you doing for the rest of the day now?
I'll probably organize my boat and then load up the camper and get ready to head down to Florida tomorrow. Just getting things. I did laundry. I guess you can overload a wash machine, so it was like shaking across the floor. So I had to take some things out, make a couple loads. But I had to unclog the sink. Did that yesterday because I'm still learning about this house stuff. I guess you can't put bacon grease down a sink, just stuff like that. But it's fixed. We're good.
Yeah, well, don't piss the ghosts off. Because maybe
No,
that's why they're slamming so
no.
many doors. Stop pouring damn bacon grease down the drain.
I thought it would just go.
It
I guess
does
not.
a little bit. What's your
It
favorite
did
food?
eventually. It's my favorite food, pizza.
It's a good one.
Like good pizza. We have good pizza back home.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
What do you?
they'll like, I'll go ahead.
No, you go. I like these awkward
Oh,
moments.
I was just thinking like the pizza like you get in the Midwest is not very good. Like the Casey's, like it's been in that cooker for like 6 hours. Like I'll eat it, but I'm not as proud to eat it.
No. So if we're ordering a pizza, what are you ordering on it?
Probably pineapples.
People don't like that. People get pissed at pineapples.
No, ham and pineapple.
It's a Hawaiian
It's good.
pizza.
Yeah, Hawaiian.
Yeah, it's a good one. I don't mind that. I don't mind
Some
that. I'll
people,
go.
I've had more people like you'll say it, like you'll be hanging out with someone for the first time or around them, and you're like, "You want to get pizza? How's Hawaiian sound?" And they're like, "Yes, I was hoping you'd say that." And I was like, "All right."
And they like it.
They
A lot of
do.
people. A lot of people get pissed about it, though. There's a lot of people who get pissed about pineapple being anywhere near a pizza.
Why is that like not okay, but anchovies is okay? It doesn't make sense to me.
I don't know. I don't know. Certain stuff's just
I
it's
love
okay.
fish, but it's not going on a pizza.
No. Do you like to eat fish?
I like some fish. I like catching them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But catfish is good.
Yeah. I weirdly don't eat a lot of fish. You would think but I'm just like, well, I feel like fish have done enough that I can buy a steak.
Right.
I should give
Right.
back.
No, that's true. I'll go down south because there's so many catfish. I'm like, I ain't hurting too much here.
No. And I don't think, I mean, dude, there's a lot of fish in Maine too. And there's a lot of fish in
Yeah.
Ontario. I don't think
Yeah.
it's a not one to hurt them thing. It's just like, it's a lot of work to fillet them and all that. It's a lot of work to eat that actual fish. I mean, it's not like
I I remember going through it. I had a friend back home that was like, "Oh, if you ever catch any white perch, like bring them over and we'll eat them." And I'm like, "Okay." So one day I filled my both sides because there's no limit on them or anything, and I was on a big school of them. I filled one side live to the max without water in it, another side live to the max without water in it, and then I was catching like two at once on like a blade bait, and I was like just flipping them in the bottom of the boat, and I filled my bottom of the boat to the seats with them, and then I brought them over, and they're like, "Oh, can you help us clean these?" And I was there till like 2 a.m. cleaning fish, and I was like, "I don't want to clean another fish after this ever again."
no,
Like, I'm not
no.
doing that again.
Do the
And then
catching, not
cleaning
the
my boat
cleaning.
afterwards.
Oh,
Yeah.
horrible. Horrible.
Boat carpet didn't like that.
Oh,
There was a lot of slime.
back in the day when I used to guide, I remember I took this client out and it was all catch and release for the most part, but some dude caught this walleye while we were bass fishing. He's like, "Oh, I want to keep it. I want to keep it." I said, "Okay, you can
Yeah.
keep it." Sure. I mean, so we go back and finish the trip and everything. And it just so happened I had to go away for a week. And I put my boat upside the house and put
Yeah.
the cover on it, which was black. And it was the summer.
Ooh.
And
Ooh.
then I came home and I'm taking the cover off the boat. And literally, we forgot said walleye in the boat. He never ended up taking the walleye, and it was in the live well for a week. And that boat probably still reeks to this day. It needed fumigated. It was horrible, horrible. I
Oh
mean, worse for the
gosh.
walleye than me, but
Right.
nasty.
I've had one. My old Skeeter. It was an '06. I think it was '06, '05 or '06 Skeeter. And it had the way the Skeeters are, they have the way their live wells are, they're like metal, but they have paint on them. And
Yeah.
I might have possibly forgot a fish in there after a tournament, and it ended up dying, but it sat in my shop for like a week. And when I opened it, all the paint from the lid fell, and like it just peeled the paint off the live well. It was so bad. It's the worst thing ever. To get it out of there, I couldn't even just like grab it and go like throw it in the woods or do whatever with it. Like I went to the lake and just flushed water in and out of my live well for hours, and then eventually got rid of the bass.
That's
I
horrible.
felt so bad. Yeah.
That's horrible. It's horrible. You don't do
Yeah.
that kind of stuff anymore, right?
No. It had died in the tournament, and back home you're supposed to like, well, you'll take them out and release them. Like you don't release them right at the dock. And then that one I was supposed to take out and just like cut it and sink it, basically what we do. And I forgot to cut it and sink it.
It happens. It happens.
Yeah.
Well, I'll let you get back to laundry, but it was good getting to know you a little bit today.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Hopefully I can catch some fish and maybe get back on here at some point.
No, yeah, I'm totally sure you'll catch fish. I mean, dude, you caught fish. That's why you're on here. Come on. You
That's it. That's the only reason why. Dang.
well, no, I mean I wanted to hear your haunted stories and so tell me something else about yourself that nobody knows. That you don't like give me some.
I really don't know because everybody knows a lot, like more than I want them to. I don't know. My camper is not as gross as advertised. That's one thing. I just didn't want Kyle staying in it with me. That was part of that. It's not great, don't get me wrong, but you can still walk in there.
I've heard bad stories. I've heard it stinks.
Once in a while. I mean, it's a box this big.
Do you
No.
like how much space is there? Is it all like just where you sleep, or is it like do you got a little
It's
table, or what do you
I got
got in
like a
there?
little. So I upgraded after last year. Before the camper I had last year was like no slide out. It's just a little bit of kitchen, one little aisle away, and then a bed basically. And this one's got a slide out, so I got like a little table and some extra storage. And it's actually you can walk around in it a little bit. It's nice.
Can I come
But
visit the camper one day?
it's up to you. I
You
mean,
don't think
that's
I
your.
should?
Well, if you do, you do.
All
Just
right. Somehow that makes me want to.
just don't
I mean,
listen to whatever before you walk in. JT's probably going to be there. Just don't listen to whatever he says before you walk in there.
well, what's he gonna say?
I don't know. He'd probably say it's gross or something, or he's seen something in there, or just something. Just don't listen to it.
All right. I judge people on my experience with them, and my experiences with you have always been bizarre but good. And
Yeah.
I look forward to watching your Elite Series career evolve.
Thank you. I'm gonna do my best.
Tyler Williams is a strange, weird, peculiar person, but I love him. He is he's like a John Cox meets Kenny Powers, but I mentioned that to him and he doesn't even know who Kenny Powers is. So he's a great dude, though. That was a fun conversation, and I look forward to watching his career evolve. It was great to catch up with Rick Clunn as we do each and every month throughout his 50th season of competition. Sorry, I had a little brain freeze. It just stopped for a second. And as we record this, God willing, I am no longer here. I'm in Florida preparing for the third and fourth stop of the Bassmaster Elite Series. This week, we're on the Harris Chain. Next week, we're in Palatka, Florida in the St. Johns River. If you come to one of those events, make sure to scream down the dock and say hello to me. Tell me you're a humper. I love meeting you guys. And I'm thankful that you tune in here each and every week. This is the part of the podcast where I'm supposed to beg you guys for like, comments, and subscribes and all that sort of stuff. I'm sure I've done that enough, and I'm sure you guys are doing that. If you're not, please do it. But here's what I want you to do this week. Now that you've listened to this podcast, we've had a little bit of tomfoolery together. Go out and make the world a better place. At a time where everybody just wants to spread anger and hate, change that with just a little bit of kindness. And I'm challenging you to the first person you run into after listening to this, say something kind to them. Say something nice to them. And I can guarantee you when you do, you'll end up feeling better. And slowly but surely, we'll have this little kindness snowball that will get bigger and bigger. And it'll be because you listen to this podcast. So you might as well like, comment, and subscribe. You see how that ended up there? Anyways, enough of me. I thank you for spending a little time with me. Have a great week. Hope to see some of you this week in Florida. Until next time, enjoy being. And as always, Bob Cobb, take it away.
Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, because Bob Cobb of the Bassmasters told you to. You hear?